What if I told you the greatest secret of female nature isn't hidden in dating apps or therapy sessions, but in the scorched earth of collapsed empires? That the most honest data wasn't collected by psychologists, but written by survivors of famine, revolution, and ruin. Forget everything you think you know about relationships, loyalty, and social contracts. In the next minutes, you'll see shocking patterns of female choice when every moral, legal, and social rule is obliterated by survival. Before we begin, if you're serious about personal growth, not comforting lies but brutal truth, you'll find value in my ebook, The Black Book of Human Nature. It breaks down suppressed truths of behavior. Link in the pinned comment. Let's begin not with a theory but with a smell. Burning libraries, fierce sweat in bunkers, rotting garbage in cities abandoned by order. This is the smell of the end of law, chivalry, and the polite lies told over dinner. In collapse, currency shifts, from money to calories, from status to survival. The greatest human experiments are run not in labs, but on ruined streets, and the results were documented, then buried, because they were too destabilizing to accept. Our first case study is where human decency froze solid, the siege of Leningrad. For 872 days, Nazi forces strangled the city. Calories became currency. Civilian rations dropped to 125 grams of bread, barely 250 calories of sawdust and dust. Men fought and starved, their bodies consuming themselves. Inside frozen apartments, a silent renegotiation unfolded. Sociologist Alexis Perry studied hundreds of diaries and found a grim inversion of the traditional family structure. The provider male, emaciated or absent, lost symbolic power. What emerged was a brutal matriarchy of scarcity. Women controlled food distribution, and in those choices we see the raw calculus of survival. Mothers made unspeakable decisions. Which child eats more? Which elder fades quietly? The choice wasn't emotional preference, but perceived future survival value. Loyalty to individuals gave way to loyalty to genetic continuity. One diary confessed the torment of diverting bread from a husband to a teenage son who could still scavenge. Marriage, sacred in abundance, became negotiable in famine. This isn't condemnation, it's observation. Female choice shifted from emotion to ruthless resource allocation. Hypergamy stripped of status and reduced to calories. Not social climbing, biological viability. Survival, not romance, became the highest good. Think war is too extreme. Then examine collapse in slow motion, the fall of the Western Roman Empire. As legions withdrew and order fractured, villas became fortresses and authority localized under warlords. Historian Kyle Harper shows that as central power collapsed, women's legal value paradoxically rose. In Salic law, a woman of childbearing age was worth more than a low-status man. Population became power. Female choice became strategic protection alignment. This wasn't romance. It was survival merger. Align with rising power or face annihilation. Agency didn't vanish, it hardened. Figures like Galla Placidia navigated husbands, captors, and kings to preserve continuity. Loyalty wasn't to desire, but to survival itself, to the fortress that would still stand tomorrow. Now make this personal. You aren't in Leningrad or ancient Gaul, but the mechanism is identical. Society today isn't collapsing from bombs, but from slow psychic erosion. Rules dissolve, incentives fragment. You see it in swipes instead of bread lines, subscriptions instead of Vergild. When institutions fail, choice reverts to personal survival algorithms. Luxury disguises the same ancient logic. Men raised on romantic myths feel shocked by hypergamy or disloyalty. But they're witnessing the Leningrad calculation, just slowed down, filtered through comfort and Instagram. Shock fuels bitterness, but bitterness is useless. To understand the pattern, we need modern data, and we have it. The BBC prison study of 2002. The experiment collapsed hierarchy, equality devolved into chaos. Without authority, relationships became transactional, click-based, and power-driven. Remove structure, and utility replaces ideology. Scale this to civilization and you see the blueprint. As marriage, religion, and community enforcement dissolve, dating becomes real-time negotiation with no higher court of appeal. This isn't moral failure, it's a system reset. Now consider the Titanic. Women and children first saved 74% of women, but class tells the real story. In first class, nearly all women and children survived. In third class, female survival dropped to 46%. Chaos broke rules. Structure preserved them. But the real lesson comes after launch. In under-provisioned lifeboats, value was renegotiated. Rowing strength, leadership, nursing skill replaced class and beauty. Maids gained authority. Socialites depreciated. The lifeboat became a collapsing society in miniature. Survival aligned people toward immediate utility. This is the pattern. When society dissolves, relationships default to pragmatism. For women, burdened by reproductive risk, choice optimizes security under uncertainty. Love in stable times becomes conditional under stress. So where does this leave the modern man? With a choice, bitterness or clarity. You aren't crazy. The contract has changed. Expecting peacetime loyalty in a storm is like sailing calmly through a hurricane. The sailor adapts, he doesn't rage. But knowledge isn't enough. You must understand the biological blueprint beneath the behavior. We now descend from history into hormones. Enter rat utopia. John Calhoun built a perfect world for rodents. Unlimited resources, no predators. It collapsed socially and sexually. Males withdrew. Females became aggressive and abandoned offspring. Maternal instinct shut down. The future was biologically cancelled by stress and density. Modern society mirrors this. Not physically crowded, but digitally saturated. Endless stimuli, collapsing rituals. Chronic psychic stress. This triggers survival responses. Not connection, but hypervigilance. Not bonding, but self-preservation. It's not moral decay, it's biology under pressure. Oxytocin bonds under safety. Cortisol breaks bonds under stress. Chronic instability suppresses long-term attachment in favor of assessment and reserves. This is the pair bonding paradox. Men seek stability in chaos. Women biologically retreat from dependency under the same conditions. Her hesitation feels personal. It isn't. It's pre-personal biology responding to an unsafe environment. From this emerges the wartime woman, not fragile but formidable, pragmatic, ruthless when needed. We saw her in post-war Germany. The rubble women rebuilt civilization while men were gone. Their loyalty wasn't romantic, it was functional. The modern guarded woman is the rubble woman of a collapsed social contract. She builds her fortress alone because she has learned to. So here is the pivot. Knowledge is power. Strategy beats resentment. You don't fight the algorithm. You become its optimal output. Be stability in chaos, calm in volatility, strength in softness, reliability where others flake, lower stress, signal safety, create order. Around you, cortisol drops and bonding becomes biologically possible. This is the reframe. You don't win her. You become the environment her biology recognizes as sane. History isn't doom, it's briefing. Female choice in collapse isn't random. It's optimization. Forge yourself into undeniable value. Then loyalty isn't demanded, it's chosen. The collapse is here. The only question left is what kind of man you choose to become within it. If collapse reveals behavior, then stability merely conceals it. Civilization doesn't rewrite human nature. It anesthetizes it. When the anesthesia fades, instincts don't emerge suddenly. They resume. This is why moral outrage is such a poor analytical tool. It assumes behavior changed when in reality conditions did. People don't become different creatures in crisis. They become honest ones. The mistake modern men make is treating female behavior as ideological, as if choices are votes in a moral election. They are not. They are responses to perceived environmental pressure. Biology does not debate ethics, it measures risk. When uncertainty rises, attachment becomes expensive. Dependence becomes dangerous. Optionality becomes safety. This explains the paradox of modern abundance paired with emotional scarcity. Resources are plentiful, but trust is not. Stability exists materially, yet feels absent psychologically. A woman does not bond to resources alone. She bonds to reliability over time. In unstable systems, time itself becomes unreliable, so bonding strategies adjust accordingly. This is why promises matter less than patterns. Words decay faster than behavior. In collapse, credibility is earned only through repetition under pressure. Men who signal intensity without consistency trigger attraction but not attachment. Intensity excites, consistency stabilizes. In chaos, stability always outcompetes excitement. The modern dating market rewards visibility, not durability. But visibility is a short-term signal. Durability is a long-term one. Confusion arises when short-term metrics are mistaken for long-term value. Social media amplifies this distortion. It turns attention into currency, novelty into leverage, and comparison into chronic stress. This keeps cortisol elevated and bonding suppressed. A stressed nervous system does not seek union. It seeks control. This is why emotional guardedness increases as choice appears to expand. Freedom without structure does not feel like liberation. It feels like exposure, and exposure demands defense. Historically, women relied on institutions to buffer male unpredictability. Marriage, community, and law absorbed risk. As those buffers weaken, risk returns to the individual. When risk is personalized, so is strategy. Loyalty becomes conditional. Attachment becomes probationary. Commitment becomes delayed. This isn't cynicism, it's calibration. The system is responding exactly as designed. Men who internalize this often swing toward resentment. But resentment signals powerlessness. Understanding signals leverage. The question shifts from "why is this happening?" to "what conditions am I creating around me?" Attraction is not persuasion, it is recognition. A nervous system recognizes safety or threat faster than logic can argue otherwise. This is why self-regulation matters more than self-promotion. A man who cannot govern himself cannot stabilize anyone else. Emotional containment is not suppression, it is mastery. Chaos cannot be calmed by someone who radiates it. Leadership begins at the nervous system level. Before words, before status, before resources, there is presence. Presence is what remains when nothing is being sold. It is felt, not declared. In collapse, people follow those who reduce uncertainty, not those who promise pleasure. This is the deep error of performative masculinity. Loud strength increases stress. Quiet capability lowers it. Security is not comfort. It is predictability under strain. The men who thrive in unstable eras are not the most charming, but the most dependable when conditions deteriorate. History remembers conquerors, but families survived because of organizers, builders, and protectors of routine. Routine is civilization in miniature. Whoever maintains it becomes indispensable. This is why order is seductive during chaos. Not because it is exciting, but because it allows the future to exist. If love is the willingness to imagine a future together, then instability is its natural enemy. The task, then, is not to demand trust, but to become trustable under pressure. When that happens, bonding stops feeling risky and starts feeling rational. And in every era of collapse, rationality, not romance, decides who is chosen to move forward. This is why modern dating advice fails. It focuses on tactics, not conditions. You can't game a system whose core variable is environmental stress. Technique works in stable environments. Character works in unstable ones. Collapse exposes character faster than any strategy ever could. A man optimized for performance collapses under pressure. A man optimized for endurance becomes invaluable. Endurance is invisible in peacetime. In crisis, it becomes magnetic. Women do not consciously seek safety. They respond to the absence of threat. The distinction matters. Threat is not just violence. It is volatility, indecision, emotional leakage, financial chaos, and erratic intent. A man who oscillates is more dangerous than a man who lacks resources. Instability predicts future loss. This is why ambition without grounding repels long-term trust. Dreams without structure feel like liabilities. Structure signals survivability. Direction signals continuity. Together they quiet the nervous system. In collapse, love becomes logistical. Who can move us forward? Who won't disappear when conditions worsen? Romantic intensity answers none of these questions. Reliability answers all of them. This is the harsh truth. Attraction opens the door, but stability decides who stays inside. Men who chase validation broadcast need. Need raises cortisol. Cortisol kills bonding. Self-sufficiency lowers pressure. Pressure is the enemy of desire under stress. This is why independence is attractive, not ideologically but biologically. A man who does not require rescue becomes a potential rescuer.